Hi there, and welcome to Coffee with Phil, where our goal is to help you live a life of purpose on purpose. Walking with God sounds easy, but how many of you know it never follows the script you prepared? In this podcast, Phil shares stories from his personal journey in the hopes that his experience, the good, the bad, and the ugly, will help you as you walk with God on your own journey. Grab your coffee and enjoy this practical and personal episode with your podcast host, Phil Strong.
Well, good afternoon and welcome to Coffee with Phil. It's Phil Strong here, your host, and always happy to be with you. I hope you're happy to be with me. Look, thanks for being on board. Thanks for jumping online and listening. I'm seeing an increasing trend on YouTube as we host these up under Zion Media. But to all my friends overseas that are listening to the podcast with the closed captions translating into their language, it's just good to say hello. And I'm really grateful that you guys are with us. And today I want to talk about being overseas. So that's exciting. So if you're overseas and listening, a big hello from New Zealand to you. I hope you're having a great day. We just celebrated Father's Day recently here in New Zealand, and I had a fantastic day with my kids all around, and it was chaos. It was noisy. It was laughing and crying kind of scenario, but look, Kathy and I bid them farewell at the end of the night, and we were glad that they'd gone, but we're also really glad they'd been with us. You know, we had lots of laughs. So it was good to have a table full of food, of which I am eternally thankful for, and a table full of people, which I'm also thankful for. So, great weekend, and of course, good coffee. But look, I hope you're having a coffee where you are. I've got my coffee machine warming up at the moment, so I'm just waiting for that so I can get an afternoon, maybe an iced latte. That's what I might have this afternoon, an iced latte. It's nice and warm in my office this afternoon. That seems appropriate. Hey, I am in the midst of planning a missions trip. So as you can see, here we are in Coffee with Phil, episode 86. I've made it my goal to reach episode 100 before the end of the year. And man, the end of the year is coming fast. So episode 86, we're tracking along having fun. I see some people going back through the archives to pick up other episodes in the last week or so. So make sure you search the titles, because there's always something different in the channel here. Coffee with Phil, we're living life to the edge. We're making our faith real, and we're living a life of purpose on purpose. And speaking of that, I want to talk about planning a missions trip, because at the moment I am deep in the planning for a missions trip. I'm taking a team, which I'm quite excited about, a team to Indonesia in January. And I want to speak about that. I've been invited to conduct a wedding. So this is the first time that I would have conducted a wedding in Indonesia. I was invited to be the guest of honor once at a wedding in India. And of course, you know, this sounds grand, but essentially what they want to do is to show the white man at the ceremony because it gives them a sense of prestige and honor for the family. But this young couple in India, it was a real cool experience. My friend Stu and I were invited to be there. We were given a seat of honor. As the presiding minister, I was able to share a blessing in English through a translator for the young couple, which I really did hope that they carried into their marriage. And then we got to be part of the feast. Oh my Lord. We went out, and of course, being the men, we were seated first. The women ate separately. But there was a bunch of guys outside cooking the curries in huge pots over open fires. And that was our lunch. And it was served on a banana leaf at a table. And that was your plate. So they just put rice in the middle, and then they served the curries. You were allowed to say no. If you didn't want any more, you just folded your leaf in half. And that was the end of your meal. Of course, they all eat with their hands, and they recognised that us whiteys are a bit useless, so they gave us a fork. And oh my gosh, the food was so good. So good. Such a good curry or two. And so that was my experience in India. So I've been invited to do a wedding in Indonesia for Ruth, who's like a daughter, part of the family, her and her sister and many others. So I've booked this trip to coincide with the wedding. And Kathy's coming with me. It's kind of a step of faith for us, for her to step out and say, yeah, she's going to commit to paying, to going to Indonesia. And she's doing that in obedience, but she's also doing it in faith. And then there's 3 others on the team, and none of the others have been to Indonesia before. Certainly not with me. One has been to Bali, down to Java, but that's it. And the others are coming for the first time with me up into Sumatra, and we're going to visit some churches. Obviously, we've got a wedding to go to. That's exciting. And after that, we'll go and visit some churches that we've financially invested into. There's one that's finished and one that's just starting. So we're going to travel up into the jungle. It's about a 12-hour bus trip into the middle of nowhere. Not that comfortable, but I'm just so excited to get back into that region and meet with the people again and see the progress they've made, and really just to invest into them. So get to take people with me, which is always fun to have people. So what I want to do today is I just want to talk about the kinds of things that run through my mind as I'm working on preparing this. And I do this in a way just to, I suppose, expose my world to you, but also in the same way challenge you to think, how does this relate to your world? And if it doesn't yet relate, why not? So you can think about that as we travel. So as I'm telling stories, just apply this to your own situation. But I just want to open by saying the first time I travelled up into Indonesia was 2015. I was actually super nervous. The pastor who had gone before me, he had 15 years of travelling up there, and he liked to tell jokes, and he had me convinced that up there you sort of sleep sitting upright against a palm tree with a sheet of corrugated iron over you to keep the rain or the animals away. And I knew he wasn't serious, but it kind of just helped me to, I suppose, accept the gravity of the responsibility of going into a place like this, representing the church and as part of God's work in the church. So I'm a little bit nervous, and I'm going up there, and I've just taken on this role as leading the church, and all of a sudden I've inherited a whole bunch of things I didn't realize that came with it. One of it was missions. And so I get up to the airport. I've got my flights booked. He's gone before me because I really wanted to piggyback off what the work was that he was doing, and I didn't have a clue what I was doing. So I was like, "Man, I'm gonna watch what you're doing." And so I had some work to finish down here, and I got up to the airport, booked into my flight, and I'm just doing what everyone does when they check in, and that's go and get fast food to have their last bit of Western food before you travel. And I heard my phone buzz, and I looked down, and there's a notification, and the flight's been delayed. Now, this is not a drama, except when you have connecting flights. And I had 2 connecting flights, and I missed both of them. So I fly into Indonesia. I fly into a city I've never been into. I have no idea. I've got limited access to technology. And somehow, through waiting in queues and getting Wi-Fi and buying a visa, which I had to present and do at the airport, I get this brief message from my white-faced friend saying, "A driver will collect you. See you soon." And now I'm in a foreign country. I don't know what that means. And so I grab my bags, and I sort of bleary-eyed walk out of the airport, and I don't know where I'm going. I've never been here before, and I don't know where the driver is, and I don't know if he knows who I am, but there's not many people that look like me walking around the airport, I've got to say that. So I walk outside, and these 2 men come up to me, and they say, Mr. Pill. And I'm like, well, that sounds like Phil. And they go, "Okay, we go." And they grab my bag, and they just start walking off. And I'm like, well, I guess I'm going with these guys. And so they chuck me in the back of this car, and they drive like absolute maniacs, which is normal over there for someone that's a driver, a paid driver. And in those days, the motorway wasn't finished, so we had to go the OG route, which took 6 hours. And because of my delayed flights and delayed connections, it was later in the day. At one point, they stopped outside a restaurant, and I was like, well, I'm assuming we're stopping for food here. So we go inside, and I just point to a picture of something that looked like fried rice. And then we get Coca-Cola. And at the end of it, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to bless these guys. I'm going to pay for their meal. You know, they're traveling with me. Well, basically for me. And I think it was $8 for 3 of us to have dinner. And I was like, oh, okay, this is going to be good. So anyway, after 6 hours, it's like 10:30 at night, we pull into this place. I can't see where we're going. It's pitch black. I've got no idea which part of the world I'm in. I've got no data on my phone at this point. So I have absolutely no idea how to track myself or where I am. And I get out of this back of this car, unfold myself. I've been there for 6 hours. And the pastors come out to greet me. And there's a white face, and it's my friend from Te Awamutu, and I literally could have kissed him on the forehead. I was just so grateful that I had ended up in the right place with the right people. And for the next week and a bit, I was just completely out of my comfort zone. As we travelled by car, we travelled by boat, we slept in the belly of a boat in a ferry. It was a transport ferry, and there was people sleeping on the deck, and there was people sleeping in the corridor, and there was people sleeping in their car, and the diesel engines are churning away all night, and I'm like, good Lord, where am I and what am I doing with my life? So it leads me, I've got 7 points here that I'm just going to track through, purely just thoughts that I'm going to share, because I want you to think about how can you be drawn into a lifestyle of being on mission and extending yourself. And the first thing I've got here is being outside your comfort zone is how you learn to rely on God and trust His hand of leading. I mentioned my friend Stu. He was part of our church. He's since passed, unfortunately. Sad for us, good for him. But he came up to me one day after church. He says, how do you know God's talking to you? And I says, well, what's the context? What do you mean? He goes, I kind of feel like God's asking me to go to India with you. I'm like, well, is that something that you want to do? He goes, no, not at all. And I was like, well, then it must be God. And how do you feel like in your stomach and in your central nervous system? He goes, I'm packing myself. I was like, well, would you be open to consider the fact that God is calling you out of your comfort zone into a space where you need to trust in Him? He goes, oh, 100%. That's exactly what's happening. I said, well, then God is speaking to you. Why don't we have a coffee and a chat one day and talk about what it looks like? And, he came on 4 or 5 trips with me. He was instrumental in some of the stuff we set up in India. And then in Indonesia, he was instrumental with one of the organizations that we partner with. And he really extended himself, and he knew God had called him into it, and he knew he was going to be uncomfortable, and yet he did it anyway. And I have huge respect for people that do that. They step outside their comfort zone because they know that they've just got to trust God. And even this last Sunday, we had one of my new team members, not yet travelled to this location, freaking out, but shared a testimony in our gathering on Sunday morning just about hearing the voice of God and being uncomfortable but certain that God was saying something. And I fully respect and celebrate that sort of thing. My second thought is, I'd say to you, God is always inviting us into a place where He can enlarge our heart. And the way that He enlarges our heart is He helps us to love other people. I'm now well familiar with the people in Indonesia. They're like family to me. So I'll use Kathy as an example. She hasn't been as many times as me, but we drive into that place and she says, I feel like I'm home. I love these people. And that's a love that God's given her. And it's a love that only came because she was trusting that God wanted her to go into that space. And there are many others that have traveled with us that would testify to this also, is that God changes your heart while you're there. And these people are just so open to receiving. I remember once we took our kids into Mexico and we worked with Youth with a Mission, and we were involved in building houses. But we were in the slums as part of that project, and the people were just so open to receiving practical demonstrations of love. And through the act of giving love, through sacrifice, that's how God enlarges our heart. And I think it's just amazing how He does that transaction in us comfortable white Westies that live with a roof over our head and food in the fridge. I'm just about to go and make myself a nice latte in my kitchen, for goodness sake. And here God says, hey, look, let me transplant you into a different place and change your heart in the process. The third thing I'd say to you is it's amazing how to see how simple life can be and the joy that comes from these ones that we visit, loving the simple things in life. I was, we took our kids to Africa a long time ago to visit our sponsor children. So you can tell that there are many different experiences that I have here. And I'm not saying that to be boastful. I'm just saying it to give you a wider context for the experiences that have shaped the attitude that God's created in me in this way. And so here we are in Uganda. We land there. We're supposed to be meeting our team. They get delayed. Familiar story. We end up staying in a transit hotel. We're not quite sure how we get there. But we're walking through the airport, and there's literally bullet holes in the wall from the last time they had a revolt. And then the customs guy decided he was going to exert his authority, and he separated me from the family to make sure he could question me. And of course, that's freaking everybody else out, including me. So anyway, we're in Uganda. We got to work with an orphanage there, as well as visit the sponsor children that were part of the program. And these kids in the orphanage, they were rescued from the street, and they were literally, by the locals, they were called street rats because they lived under buildings and they lived off scraps of food. When these ones had been saved, rescued into the orphanage, we spent time with them. And I watched my kids on the floor of this orphanage or outside in the dust playing games with these kids. And these kids had invented games out of recycled pop bottle caps. You know, when you pop the lid off a bottle of soda, which they have over there, you get this sort of half-bent, round disc kind of lid. Well, they had scavenged these out of the trash. They'd made them as flat as they could, and then they started inventing games with them. And so for hours, our kids would just sit on the floor and play these games with these kids, and they would laugh, and they couldn't understand each other, but they knew what the rules were. My kids managed to learn quickly. And the simple things in life, you know. I've got this photo that I've shared when I speak about missions, and it's a little toy car that's got wheels cut by hand out of a piece of wood or a branch, and they're attached very crudely to a recycled or rescued bottle of oil, 1 litre oil bottle. And it's been made into the shape of a car by a dad, I would imagine, and given to a child as a toy. What's the point? It's amazing how simple life can be and how much joy can come from a simple life. You know, we complicate things, and I just love getting out of the rat race and into the simplicity of the jungle and just trying to find the simplicity of life and faith in that context. One of the things that doesn't make Kathy so comfortable is you end up eating things that you never thought you would, or in her case, you survive longer on rice than you ever thought you would. Kathy often jokes. She says she turns into a vegetarian the moment she lands into Indonesia or into Africa because she's just not comfortable eating stuff she doesn't know, and is also not that confident with food anyway. The point is, you know, we got blessed in Africa with the gift of a live chicken. It was one of their ways they could honor us. It was from the family that we sponsored. It was the only thing they had to give us. And, you know, that would mean that they would go without meat for that week. But we ate it that night, and we ate it in celebration of the honor and the privilege it was to be with those people. But yeah, no, you do eat a lot of rice when you come to Indonesia with us. The other thing I'd say is the range of activities that you get to experience in that environment gives you a really broad view of how wide the impact that we can make from here. You know, the dollar goes a long way when we send it to another country. We have the ability to build houses for a lot cheaper than you can here, build a church, or fund someone through their education. And in a third world country, education can be what lifts a family out of poverty, because with qualifications, they can get a lot more stable jobs, a lot more regular income, and paid more, and a lot more perks. Like, for instance, when you work with the government, you get guaranteed retirement and so forth. So, you know, but as I've said, in Africa, we did also a lot of work in Indonesia, and we used to support an orphanage in India. And these orphans, you know, they get rescued out of the most horrible situations. Some of them are just left to die on a rubbish heap. And by the grace and the mercy and the love of God, someone finds them, they rescue them, they clean them up, they try and get them healthy. Not all of them end up making it through that, and some die, which is incredibly sad. But in this place, the orphans just thrive on love. They've got clean clothes, they've got food in their bellies, and they've got someone that loves them. And it's just amazing to be in that environment. Last time Kathy and I were there, we just spent an afternoon just sitting with them, just playing, and not really playing, but just being played with. They want to touch your hands, they want to stroke your leg, they want to just rest against you. They love looking at photos because language is a challenge for some of them, but pictures speak 1,000 words. So you show them pictures of your family and where you live, not so much the opulence, but certainly the landscape and the countryside. I've been worshipping in churches that have dirt floors or a concrete bunker, and the sound system is horrible. The quality is poor. The volume is loud, but you look around the room and you watch the purity of their heart and worship, and it certainly transforms you. One trip we traveled so many hours in this car day after day, 12 hours at a time, and I felt like my bum was going flat just because it sat in the seat so long. And the roads were dirt, and we were going through the jungle, so you see all sorts of things. You're not unsafe, but it's a long way between toilet stops, depending on where you want a toilet. But you just get exposed to the magnitude of the world we live in and the diversity of it. And then on the flip side, I've just started working in Jakarta. I've been invited in there, and I'm trying to build a relationship with these pastors and leaders, which is a very different context because Jakarta has 10 million people that live in the city, but during the day, it doubles in size as people travel in on the train or bus for work. This is a huge population of people in one concentrated city, and it's 90% Muslim. So as a mission field, it's very, very different. And I'm excited about just what God's going to expose in that work there. The point I'm making is you just get to see so many different things, but in every place I travel, I see people that are desperate for hope. And there is only one source of hope that can lift them out of the darkness that many of them live in, and that's the hope of the message of Jesus. And I believe that we demonstrate that in practical ways. So we're always praying for healing, we're always praying for God's mercy and His provision, and of course on the back of that, the truth sets them free. So a wide range of things you get to see. I always say this, and I say it to remind myself also, but my sixth point here is you travel thinking you're going to change the world, but actually the world changes you. I don't say this to be prideful or judgmental, but I can tell which one of my friends have not been exposed to a third world environment because of the way they consider the privilege their right. And I would say I'm just grateful for the way that my exposure to the things of the world has transformed me. And, God breaks your heart for the things that break His heart, that grieve Him, widows, orphans, the hungry, the lost, the homeless, the hopeless. And the world will change you if you allow it. And I really love that, the diversity of that. The final point that I really just want to speak to in a few different ways, it's point number 7, but you're probably not taking notes, so it doesn't matter. But being part of a team forces you to learn extra grace. Have you ever, been talking about a family member or a friend or a person you work with, and you say, "Oh, that's EGR. That's EGR, definitely." And EGR stands for extra grace required. What that means is some people are just difficult to be around, or some people are different to communicate with, or some people are frustrating. And so you don't want to act out what you're feeling. So you just have to ask God for extra grace. So you're saying extra grace required means I've just got to be more tolerant. I've got to be more level-headed. I've got to be slow to speak. I've just got to stop being judgmental. And I want to speak with love, and I want to listen, and I want to respect and honor. Well, when you're on a team and you're overseas, you're away from home. You're often tired because you're in a different climate and a different time zone. You're stressed because you're outside your comfort zone, and God might be asking you to do things that you don't normally do. Sometimes you get physically sick. So you eat the wrong thing or you drink the wrong thing, and it messes with your tummy, and that doesn't help. Did I say that you're tired? You're tired because you're sick. You're tired because you're emotionally drained. Your emotional energy expends your physical energy. And then finally, you're just uncomfortable because you're outside your normal. You get up and it's like fried rice for breakfast again, or curry at 7 a.m. before you jump in a bus. Like, that's just out the box, man. And so what I say is, when you are on a trip, it's highly likely that you're going to have a bad day. Now, I'm not speaking that into being. I'm just warning you in case it happens to you. It happens to me. And when you have a bad day, just accept that you're having a bad day, and we'll still love you through it. If you need time out, we'll give you time out. If you need a rest, we'll give you a rest if we can. If you just need alone time, then put on your face mask, your eye mask, and put on your headphones and don't talk to anyone for an hour. There was this one time I'd been ministering for days on end, got home late at night. They said, okay, Pastor, we pick you up at 8 o'clock. And I was like, in the morning? They said, yes, we must go to the prison. You will speak to the prisoners. Okay. And get up the next morning, my eyeballs are hanging out. And we had no time for food because the kitchen wasn't open. So I had a guy with me, and we sort of asked them if they'd stop at the convenience store. And I remember buying a Red Bull and a packet of chocolate biscuits. And that was my breakfast. But you know what? I chose that as my breakfast. And then my translator, she's bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and she's happy to be with me. And she says, okay, Pastor Phil, what shall we speak about today? And I looked at her and I said, I don't know. I must have some time with my eyes closed and my music playing. And in 30 minutes, we will be able to speak. And she's really gracious, extra grace required. She goes, okay. And she just goes and has a sleep. And I just had to get in the zone. I had to put worship music on. I had to get my attitude right. I had to get some rest, but I also really knew that I needed to press into what God was trying to do in me and through me and preparing me for what was coming that day. And we had a fantastic time. In the prison, we had men, we had women, we had all sorts happening, and it was a fantastic morning. The guys welcome us with their guns, and the prisoners, have fun with us, but no, the prisoners didn't have guns. The guards had guns. Let me just clarify that. Way outside my comfort zone. But, you just got to accept that sometimes you're off, man. There was this time I got really, really sick, both ends going all night. I was so uncomfortable and so unwell. I was drained. All of the next day, I just lay in my bed. And that night, we were booked to go up into the countryside, up into the hills, into the mountains with forest kind of thing, not really jungle, but pretty primitive, up to a village. And we were going to speak to a house church there in the evening. And they were really excited that the white people were coming to see them. And Kathy was on that trip and 2 other people. And she came back into the room, and she could tell I was looking like death. And she just said, hey, okay, time to go. And I said, can you see I'm not going anywhere? And she goes, but what must we do? We must travel tonight. And I said, you know what? Tonight, I'm staying in my bed, and you guys are going to go, and you're going to be awesome because God's going with you. And to their credit, they were like, you know what? That's right. And they got in the car, and this is the first time they'd traveled without me. And they were nervous as heck, they're all like having a nervous wee and a nervous laugh and really like quite jittery. But they went into that house, and they just spoke a personal testimony, and they prayed for people, and they saw demons run and flee and healing happen. I was quite glad that I had that bad day. I didn't enjoy it, but I was glad for what it birthed in other people. And so when you have a bad day, just suck it up, have a bad day and move on. But don't be surprised that you just need some time out. So as I close this, I suppose I really want to bounce it back and say, every time I visit these people, they feel loved because you've turned up. And I wonder who might feel loved because you turn up. What's the opportunity you've got to just get outside your comfort zone, allow God to enlarge your heart, and allow the world to shape you and change you for the benefit of how you might be a better person here as well. Missions does start at home. I agree with that, but often we have to have our hearts completely wrecked by God, changed by God, and transformed by God so we can be the love that our community needs in our neighborhood. So I leave that challenge with you. And I just say, God bless you and I hope that you're really stirred. And I hope the Holy Spirit provokes you and speaks to you. And I really, really hope that one day we get to travel together, because that would be heaps of fun. So thanks for having coffee with Phil today. I'm enjoying my iced latte. I'm going to carry on with my afternoon, and wherever you are, may God truly bless you with his love and a confidence that he is near to you. All right, take care, and I'll be with you soon. God bless.